Welcome to this video tutorial. This tutorial is about illustrating how to do costing for laboratory tests. So in this very example, we are given some information to determine what the cost of each of these tests is going to be. So the tests that we are given are LFT, liver function tests, blood film for malaria parasites, urine routine examination, hepatitis B, surface antigen test, fasting blood glucose. Now, for each of the tests, we are given the annual test count, which is the number of tests that were done in a particular period, that is 1 year. So for liver function test, 18,000, 25,000 for malaria parasite, 21,000 for urinary, 8,000 for hepatitis B, fasting blood sugar, glucose 5,480. Now, for each of these tests, we are also given the cost of the reagents. Now, the cost of the reagent given us here is the unit cost. So the unit cost is the cost of one reagent. So for LFT, the cost of reagent for one test of LFT is 14 cedis. That of blood film for malaria parasite, 3 cedis 50 pesos, etc., as we have here. We also have quality control material in respect of each of the tests, and the unit costs are here. Similar for specimen containers that the specimens will be put in, these are the unit costs. Syringe and needle costs is 1 cedi 20 pesos for each of them. So here the assumption is that one test or one syringe and needle is for one patient test or for one patient. So the assumption is that 1 for 1. It is not a case where you collect a specimen into one tube or one container and then use it to run several tests. So that is the assumption we have here. Just one sample collection, one test. So that is the information given us. And we also have the total number of tests that were done for that particular year as 79,042. So that's the sum of all these individual tests. Other information given include consumables, cotton wool, gloves, detergent, alcohol, and stationery. These are the annual costs for each of them. And there's a total cost for consumables here. There's also a cost for utility. Utility includes water, electricity, internet. And these are the costs, and the total cost is 55,000 for the year. Staff emolument includes salaries, statutory payment, allowances, continuous education program for staff, totaling 144,563 Ghana cedis. Administration costs are here. Institutional license renewals, repairs and maintenance, rent, depreciation of assets, fuel for official duties, cleaning services, all amounting to 124,000. Now, we went through the lectures on Saturday, and we learned about direct costs and indirect costs. Now, with the information that is given us here, it is clear to see that reagent cost is a direct cost because it can be directly attributed to the specific tests that were done. Quality control materials are also direct costs. Specimen containers and syringe and needle are also direct costs. So these, you can easily trace it to each of the tests. Now, the indirect costs includes the following: the consumables, utility, staff emolument, administration. These are the indirect costs. They are indirect costs because it is not easy to tell how much or what quantity of cotton wool was consumed by running an LFT or a liver function test or blood film for malaria parasites or any of the tests. It is so difficult. You can't just look at it and say, this test used this amount of cotton wool, because when we are using cotton wool, we don't use it for each test. We use it to handle a number of tests. So we'll find a better way of sharing the test, the consumables cost over the test that we are doing for the year. Same way as in gloves. You don't use one gloves for one test. Usually you handle a number of samples to run a test. Same way as in detergent, alcohol. So these are typically indirect costs. That's why you can't easily attribute it to the individual test. Same for utility, that is water, electricity, internet, staff emolument, administration, etc. So what we are going to do now is, because these are direct costs, we can easily attribute them to individual tests. So we can say that reagent costs, QC material costs, specimen container costs, syringe costs, totaling them would give us total direct cost of each test. So what we can do here is to add all of them. So for LFT, we sum up and we have 16 cedis, 50 pesos for direct costs. And we do same for the others. So you can simply drag here to fill for the others. So thus is our direct cost in Ghana cedis. Now, we are done with the direct cost. Next, we look at the indirect cost. So we take them one after the other. Stationery. So total stationery cost is 36,090. So what we do is to share this cost over all the tests that were done for the year, which is 79,042. So we arrive at what we call cost per stationery. So it is going to be the cost, that is the total cost of stationery divided by the total test count. So total cost is 36,090 divided by our total test count for the year, and that gives us 0.45. 0.46. So what it means is that we are actually sharing the stationary cost over all the tests. So each test is going to consume or is going to absorb 0.46 Ghana cedis as part of the indirect cost that is added onto it in order for us to determine our full cost. So we come here and say stationary, sorry, consumables in Ghana cedis. Total consumables. So that is 0.46 Ghana cedis. 0.46 Ghana cedis. So that is going to be same for blood foam for malaria parasites, 0.46. Same for all the tests, 0.46. So we are done with consumables. Then we move to utility. Total cost of utility is 55,150. So we are looking for cost per utility, which is total costs divided by total test count, and that gives us unit cost for utility. So we have 0.697, approximately 0.7. Okay, so you come up and create that utility cost. That is 0.7. So same for the others. Okay. Do the same for staff cost. So total staff costs. Is 144,560. So we calculate our costs per staff. That is going to be total cost divided by total test count. Or cost per test. Yes. Sorry, cost per test. Staff cost per test. Okay. So that gives us 1 CD 80 pesos. 83 pesos. We apply the same principle to administration. Total admin costs. It's 124,000. So admin cost per test. Admin cost per test. That is going to give us admin costs divided by total test count. So that gives us 1 CD 57 pesos. Okay. So let's go and create the rest. Did up to utility. So we go to staff costs, and that was 1 CD 83 pesos. So 1 CD 83 pesos, and it's going to be the same for each test because we shared it proportionately according to the number of tests. Okay, next is administration cost. So we come here, admin cost. What did we have? We got 1 CD 57 pesos. So 1 CD 57 pesos for each test. For each test. For each test. Okay. So that's it. So we found a way of sharing the indirect cost, which is the consumables, the utility cost, staff cost, and admin cost. We found a way to share it among all the tests that we did that year. So after that, we'll now add it to the direct costs we determined from the beginning. So we're now going to add both the direct and the indirect, and then we get what? Total cost per test. So we're going to add all of them and get our total cost per test. So for LFT, we have 21 CDs, and we drag and get for the rest. So essentially, these are the cost or the total cost for each of the tests, as we can see here. Now, what it means is that we have successfully shared all the indirect costs among all the tests that were run. So if we want to even know how much was consumed by liver function tests, we can indirectly calculate it as the annual test count for liver function tests multiplied by the respective indirect cost. So for consumables, we're going to have 0.46 Ghana cedis multiplied by the test count for LFT of 18,654. So once we multiply this by that, then we can say this is how much consumables was shared on LFTs. Now, from this principle, it tells you that the larger the number of tests, the lower the indirect costs to each of the tests. So that is one thing we can learn from here. Okay. So I think this is pretty straightforward, and we expect that you should be able to apply this at your various workplaces. Thank you so much.